After watching The Lion Guard regularly since the show launched in 2015, I realized it had been many years since I'd seen the movies the show is based off. With that in mind, I decided I would rewatch the original film and its two sequels with a more critical eye, and judge them on their own merits and also see what they could contribute to the currently airing show. Thanks to the recent digital re-release of the films, I was able to watch them in glorious HD, which is a far cry from the aging VHS tapes I grew up on. I decided to watch the films in the order they were released, even though the third film is supposed to be an in-between-quel of sorts. The overarching narrative of each film is relatively self-contained, and only somewhat related to the other two, so watching them in the order of their release seemed to be the best way to experience them. In preparation for this video, I ran across an article online that contained an interview with several former Disney animators. This article confirmed a story I'd heard a while back but had yet to verify. According to Tom Bancroft, animator for Pocahontas and The Lion King's young Simba, it was, quote, an interesting time. The head of Disney Animation, Jeffrey Katzenberg, decided we should up production on the animated features and do something that hadn't been done before at Disney: produce one animated film a year. To do that, the animation staff had to be broken into two groups. One group would work on the further along in production Pocahontas, and the other group would work on the film that was just getting started in story, and I think it was still just called Lions, what would become The Lion King. Long story short, all the most experienced animators wanted to work alongside Glenn Keane on the for sure hit Pocahontas, which left all the inexperienced, but hungry to prove themselves, animators on The Lion King, with two exceptions: Andreas Deja and Ruben Aquino. They were the two top animators that were either asked or volunteered to go on to The Lion King. This split of the animation team set up a friendly rivalry between the artists of these films that made them both better. Close quote. I'm sure I butchered some of those names, but the point is that The Lion King exceeded all expectations, even from within Disney itself. From a financial perspective, this was truly the peak of the so-called Disney Renaissance, and even to this day is held by many to be a true classic, in every sense of the word. But was The Lion King really all that great? Does it still hold up today, even after the animation industry has largely shifted towards computer-generated wonderlands? The answer, of course, is yes, but I'd like to take a deeper look at why this movie is so great and where its sequels and spin-offs have taken its legacy. One of the first things you learn when taking a fiction writing class is that you have to grab your audience's attention quickly, or they will stop reading, no matter how good the rest of your work is. The opening sequence of The Lion King takes this philosophy to heart, and in a way that permanently cemented it in the minds of almost all its viewers. Its bombastic vocal solo accompanied by a zoomed-in view of an African sunrise has become so recognizable that it's been parodied, referenced, and made a tribute of so much that it is quite likely that some people could be quite familiar with the scene without ever having seen the original. It also helps that The Circle of Life is an excellent song on its own, too. But beyond having a catchy and memorable song, this sequence establishes the foundation upon which the entire movie is built. From introducing key characters and places, to showing off how dynamic the camera will be throughout the film, the opening sequence does a lot without actually having any dialogue outside of the song's lyrics. Oh, and it establishes right away that this will definitely be a musical. In the YouTube video, Pirates of the Caribbean, Accidentally Genius, by Reality Punch Studios, an excellent point was made about how to squeeze the most out of a given sequence of film. The secret is to try to get a given sequence to do more than one thing at a time. Mere exposition and plot progression aren't enough to make a good scene, and never ever have an action sequence just for the sake of action. They point out the most recent Transformers movies as an example of this. For example, showing what a character is like, advancing the plot, and hinting at the culture that surrounds the world is something that many movies struggle to do as it is, and doing all three simultaneously is even harder to pull off, but the end result is often worth the effort. I believe that doing this is one of the things that helps a movie feel well-paced, regardless of its actual running time. The reduction of the opening credits to a simple Walt Disney Pictures Presents and a thumping title card, do what most opening credits could only dream of doing, namely, enhancing the opening sequence instead of feeling like a tacked-on thing that audiences are meant to endure, rather than enjoy. Some movies try to circumvent this by making their opening credits into a fun little thing in themselves, but The Lion King makes them a small but integral part of the film itself. The next scene, which is in charge of the introduction of Scar, is almost as important and well done as the Circle of Life sequence that preceded it. Here is presented the first real dialogue in the movie, and also establishes that the characters of the film are often exaggerated and focused in on their purpose, but still complicated non-caricatures. Everyone in the film, from Scar and Shenzi all the way to Timon and Zazu, are well thought out with defining characteristics, but are never defined merely by their characteristics, if that even makes sense. What I mean is that all the characters in this film have a clear-cut purpose, but are never defined by that purpose, and they all end up being characters that are easy to understand, but have the depth to make them interesting. The beginning of the movie's dialogue also demonstrates the sheer majesty of this style of animation. A profile of a speaking lion requires an awful lot of attention to their mouths, since lions have a lot more jaw and chin than humans do. To create lip sync of this caliber is an achievement in and of itself. I personally find that animation is only as impressive as you are willing to let it be. I know I am part of a tiny majority of people who actually care about these little details, but I do care, and they mean a lot to me. It clearly also meant a lot to the people who created this movie, and I hope that they take some satisfaction knowing that the little details they put in their work have not gone unnoticed and are not unappreciated. The dialogue itself is excellent in this scene, and this quality continues throughout the entire film. From watching a few behind-the-scenes clips of the production of this movie, it's clear that a lot of people put a lot of thought into how it would work out, and the dialogue of most scenes underwent several revisions. This level of care made its way into the recording booth, where every actor gave their character a stellar performance. That might seem like a broad statement, but if you look at the cast, there really aren't that many voiced roles, and each one was done perfectly. This is especially impressive with the children actors. With this quality of writing, it is no wonder that this film has generated some of the most memorable quotes in movie history, from "Look, Simba, everything the light touches is our kingdom," to "Hey, I'm still the same guy, but with power." Almost every exchange of dialogue is a masterpiece in its own right. Personally, I'm one of those people who loves quoting lines to friends and family, and The Lion King is one of my favorites. Part of this comes from its near universal familiarity, but mostly from how good the quotes are and how much fun they are to say. The film's score is also on point. Hans Zimmer has proven himself to be a master at scoring movies, and The Lion King is one of his high points. I personally believe that movies need central themes in their music, and that those themes need to be explored and built around. I've heard that this opinion is somewhat unpopular among movie makers at the moment, and that a movie's soundtrack shouldn't call attention to itself. To that, I point at Star Wars and basically anything else John Williams is famous for. The suppression of recognizable themes is one of the current trends I hope dies out soon. This problem isn't isolated to film either. Video games are often remembered for their iconic music, but in an attempt to have games mirror some of the more impressive cinematic sides of film, they've also started to pick up some bad habits, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a game in recent memory that had a soundtrack you could hum along to, or, better yet, hum to yourself. Thankfully, The Lion King's soundtrack has none of those problems, and remains one of the most recognizable soundtracks in film. Part of this is due to the use of African vibes in its music. Real, traditional African music is often very foreign to Western audiences, and many find it to be difficult to enjoy, myself included. But Western music with African influences in its vocals and instruments can be incredibly effective in tricking the Western mind into believing it's actually African music. The Lion King's African vibes are used to great effect here, despite it being very far removed from actual African music. The faint chorus that goes along with much of the score is one of the most iconic parts of the film's music. This vocal chorus is so faint and musical that I doubt many native speakers would be able to understand it without looking up the lyrics. But the sound is there, and it helps define exactly what the film's music is. There are a few more overt musical inspirations from Africa, mostly heard during musical numbers with drums. The musical numbers themselves are all excellent, and true masterpieces in their own right. Beyond being fun, easy-to-learn songs, all but one help to advance the plot in a meaningful way that would not have been as effective without song. That one exception is I Just Can't Wait to Be King, which mostly just reinforces Simba and Nala's relationship to each other and their attitude towards Zazu at the moment. This song is weaker in the movie for it, but given how much I enjoyed the song itself, it doesn't detract from the movie either. Each of the other songs, however, serve as alternatives for dialogue that would probably have slowed the movie down. For example, Be Prepared turned what would have been a long sequence showing Scar uniting the hyenas and hatching brilliant schemes and making grand promises, all using dialogue, into a condensed version that was as much fun to watch as it was to listen to, all while moving Scar's relationship with the hyenas forward. Can You Feel the Love Tonight solidified exactly what relationship adult Simba and Nala had, but also gave a prelude to how reluctant Simba was to talk about his feelings. Hakuna Matata spelled out Timon and Pumbaa's philosophy on life, and showed Simba adopting it and how he grew up with it. Plot progression through song is one of the great achievements of this film, and is a concept that all creators of musicals would do well to consider. By far, one of the most impressive scenes done in The Lion King is the Wildebeest Stampede, with Simba running for his life from a spooked herd. Thousands of individual characters moving along would be nearly impossible to do using traditional animation techniques, so the filmmakers turned to a CG solution. Using computers to assist them, they were able to have thousands of rudimentary AI-controlled characters, each with a basic awareness of their surroundings and a defined goal of where they were going to move. They could react to other characters, and each would have a randomly generated color palette to add variety to their appearance, and all this was then overlaid on top of the traditionally drawn background. This is a similar solution to what the current Lion Guard show uses, except the Lion King CG extras actually look like they belong in the show, and the Lion Guards look like they came straight out of Mickey Mouse's clubhouse. The inclusion of these awful CG animals in the Lion Guard is one of the few parts of the show that never ceases to annoy me. I'm not an animator myself, so I wouldn't know what kind of work would be required to come up with a better solution, but as it stands, I would rather have smaller groups of animal extras rather than see a sea of blatantly CG antelope and zebra. All of the Lion King's pioneering technology, attention to detail, and incredible music would all be in waste, however, if the story was no good. While it's clear that there are a lot of similarities between The Lion King and Shakespeare's Hamlet, it would be a disservice to call The Lion King a strict adaptation of the English play. There are many particular plot points that don't match up, and the general story beats play out very differently. The Lion King is very much its own story, and while it can be quite dark at times, it is still distinctly Disney, and always gives the audience time to feel good again before throwing another curveball. There are always high notes between the low, which makes for good drama. The story is also concisely told, which keeps the pace up, and keeps the audience from getting bored. Each scene has a deliberate reason to be there, and if it didn't work, it was cut out. Just look at the song Morning Report, which was added to the DVD release of the film in 2003. It expands on the small, clever, pun-infused report Zazu gives to Mufasa into a full-fledged musical number. Personally, I'm not a fan of Morning Report. I prefer the original dialogue to it, but I think it also objectively weakens the movie. Brevity is a valuable gem in movies, and this edition compromises the film's pacing. Clearly, there is a lot going on with The Lion King, and there are many elements that work together to make a cohesive whole. But how does the Lion Guard TV show relate to the original film? Quite well in many respects. The Lion Guard is also character-driven, tries to keep its pacing tight, and often exceeds expectations. Before I get into the things that the Lion Guard does really well and helps to continue the legacy left by the original film, I'd like to go over a short list of grievances I have with the show. First, the inclusion of a song in every single episode isn't the best idea in my opinion. A great song can make up for its lack of meaningful contribution to an episode, as in the case of We'll Make You a Meal in the episode Too Many Termites. The general premise of the song is that Ray Ray and Goy Goy sing a song full of double meaning to some aardwolves, using wordplay to describe how much fun they'll have eating said aardwolves. This sort of wordplay could easily have been done without the song, and done in about 15 seconds, but the song is good enough that it justifies its existence in the episode. On the other hand, a somewhat lackluster song can be made better by advancing the plot of the episode. In the song Baboons, in the episode of the same name, Fuli makes most of her walking journey during the course of the song, and admits that the baby baboon she found herself in charge of wasn't all that bad. The song itself wasn't terrible, but it was made better by the fact that real stuff was happening during it. But the times when songs are kinda bland and don't advance the episode's plot is where I take issue. Take the song Tickbirds and Rhinos in the episode Oh No the Tickbird. The song itself isn't all that great, and literally rehashes the conversation that took place directly before the song and resumes right after. All it does is show a flashback of when Kifaru and Mwenzi were still together, which kind of reinforces their relationship, but not as much as all the dialogue that pervades the rest of the episode. Some of the songs in The Lion Guard are genuinely good, and work almost as well in their respective episodes as the songs in the original film worked for it. But insisting on a song in every single episode has led to a wide range of quality, and the show as a whole has suffered for it. The closest we've come to a song-free episode so far is Jonja's New Crew, where Chungu sings a 19-second rendition of Kion's Lament. Surprisingly, this song works well for the episode, since it quickly brings Cheesy and Chungu to their next plot point of trying to hunt some antelope, and sheds light on the fact that they consider Jonja to be family. I already explained how much I dislike the current use of low-quality CG extras in The Lion Guard, but it's worth bringing up again when talking about when the show falls short. I'd still prefer the use of fewer background animals if it meant each was a higher quality, traditionally animated character. I'd also be okay with a static copy-pasted character in a scene where no motion is required. I continue to wonder how 21 years of computer advancement hasn't made recreating the Wildebeest scene shown in the 1994 film possible for low-budget studios. I'm sure that the creators of the show are more aware of its shortcomings than I am, and I hope that one day they'll have the resources to iron these things out. Last but not least on the list of things that weaken the show is the use of fart jokes. The Lion King had a grand total of 3 fart jokes that were all done in the span of about 4 minutes, and weren't overdone. The tempo of the scenes wasn't broken or punctuated by the jokes, and the jokes weren't ever the focus of a scene. Sadly, the same cannot be said of The Lion Guard. In The Lion Guard, there are entire scenes that build up to the fart joke. There are entire plot points that revolve around a fart joke being there to resolve a problem. This issue has gotten better in the second season, which is slightly more mature in general, but I am sure a vast majority of viewers wouldn't miss them if they were removed from all future episodes. It's hard to imagine a time when someone watches an episode of the show and remarks, "Gee, that was pretty good, but when are they gonna bring back Bunga making his signature green gas cloud? I missed that thing." Now that I'm done nitpicking, let's explore the areas where the Lion Guard really lives up to the legacy set by the Lion King, at least concerning the main characters. Given the budget the show has, I doubt the creators are able to put as much detail in every character in the show as they would like. But when it comes to the 5 main characters, they are very well done. Kion, the star of the show and son of King Simba and Queen Nala, has some incredible work done with his animation. His facial expressions capture his good-natured yet sober-minded approach to life. This level of attention carries over to the other 4 members of the Guard as well. The Guard's voice acting is on point, with its child cast bringing a level of competence to the table that I find quite impressive. A part of the show that is largely hit and miss is the stories it tells. The first season of the show was filled with a few important episodes that contribute to a larger overarching narrative, but most of them were straight filler. Some of the filler was quite good, mind you, but the show is at its weakest when it's telling a filler story that isn't very good. But when the show is firing on all cylinders, it can create some truly enjoyable episodes. Some of my personal favorites are Never Judge a Hyena by Its Spots, The Search for Utamu, Too Many Termites, Jonja's New Crew, Lions of the Outlands, The Rise of Scar, and Let Sleeping Crocs Lie. Many of these episodes contribute to the greater narrative of the show, but not all of them. They all tell their stories in a tight, concise way and don't have terrible songs forced down their throats. I'd love to go into detail about how I feel about some of the characters in the show, but there's so much to say about them that I think I'll leave that topic for another video. For now, I'll just say that my opinion on Bunga is complicated, and I feel it will take some amazing writing to keep him at his best. In the end, the Lion Guard is its own beast. It is at times a worthy successor to The Lion King, and I thoroughly enjoy watching it. I realize I'm probably one of the few adults who takes animated shows like The Lion King and The Lion Guard this seriously, but I enjoy thinking a little deeper about these things, and I hope you've enjoyed hearing my thoughts. Next time, I plan on examining The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. I made some pretty bold statements in this video, and I'd love to hear what you think. If you have any suggestions on how I could make my videos better, or if you have something you'd like me to discuss in my next video, leave a comment below. If you liked this video, feel free to subscribe and leave a like. Thanks for watching. Until the Pride Lands end, Lion Guard defend.